Welcome to Culture of Paint. In this episode, we're going to take a look at what's caught our eye in the last couple of weeks in the miniatures painting world. For the main segment, Andy's going to take us through his experience at the first World Model Expo in 5 years, and we'll close out the show as usual, taking a look at what our hashtag paint cultists have been up to. Now, Culture of Paint's aimed at a mature audience. We might use explicit language or discuss adult themes. Now let's talk about paint. And we are back in. Is all the chat there? Yes, all the chat's there. Matt's there and is there. Lovely. Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode. I'm Henry, and you joining me as usual are Matt and Andy, but no Rich, but he'll be back soon. Don't worry, he's fine. It's been a bit of upheaval this last week at Cult HQ, various lurgies and whatnot. So regular schedule will be back soon, we promise. How you doing, boys?
Right,
Yeah.
I want to paint again now after the weekend.
Well, yeah, I bet. And paint big-ish things, I imagine.
Managed to savage my hand.
things.
What you
back in
done?
Books.
Oh, no.
Too many
It's not
compendiums
the
going out.
last one of
Yeah.
1,250 books. Cut my knuckle down to the
Humble
bone.
brag, yeah.
1250,
Paper cut.
eh?
No,
Bombshell.
right, knuckle down to the bone, and I just dumped a load of super glue in it.
Ooh, grim.
Whoa. Been there.
Me and Andy were comparing scalpel injuries the other day. The threat is real, you know. The worst was I so many times I'm hobbying recently, and I find I'm pinging things off, and they're going in my eye, and I'm just like, oh, you got to put something on.
What are you doing?
Something on. It's just like little things, like I'll be scraping a
Heat
mold
protectors,
line
mate.
or
Heat
something like that, and it always finds its way there, doesn't it?
That's why I really like these, because I was cycling the other day in London, and I think a stone hit me in the glasses because it's chipped it. So safety goggles always.
I've ruined 2 good pairs of sunglasses riding my motorbike, and that's very foolish. But
But you look
I can
cool.
still
You
see.
look well cool, though.
I look well cool. I can still see, right? So there's
Trees
no
gone.
no bad things. But enough about potential hobby-ending injuries. In fact, on that note, get well soon, Robin. Robin McLeod is so hot right now, but he's also be interesting. Is he out of the game for UKGD? We will see.
Nah,
What's he
Robin's
done?
never out of the game for UKGD.
Some
his collarbone, hasn't he?
plonker on his bloody mobile phone smashed into him on a motorbike, didn't he?
Oh shit! I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
So, but he's all right. He's all right. So don't.
But he's still buying models, which, so, you know, still doing his main hobby.
main part of the
purchasing
hobby.
Models.
Yeah. If you want to send him any get well soon presents,
Crazy.
just send them to Cult of Paint, and we'll make sure he gets them. Depends if we want them or not. Right. Enough waffling. Lovely to see all the chat there. There's always lots of new names every time, and that's not just me forgetting it after 2 weeks. There's definitely new names. So and some familiar ones. So yeah, lovely to see you all on this
I think they're looking for the
balmy
truth.
evening. Right. Last couple of weeks. It's only been a couple of weeks. Feels like ages. What's been going on? What's happening with the slides, Matt?
So, first up is
And my slides button's definitely not working because I can't see nothing.
have you,
So you
The big
got-
castle and
yeah.
loads of rocks.
what it is.
let me put it back into. Try
It's
that
yours,
one.
Matt.
Not mine.
I don't know, mate. It must be mine. But what
What's
is
your
it?
pick,
It's,
Henry?
it's Helm's Deep.
What even is it? Oh, is it Helm's Deep? Oh,
Yeah.
mate. So, who was it? Ryan. Ryan Allen, fantastic painter. Ryan, A Painter's Journey, sent me this picture the other day from this account. Just outrageous. Like, imagine playing a game on that would be amazing. And this account's done a bunch more. It's definitely like a hobby bucket list for me. Like if
Yeah.
Cult gets where we want it to, and we can have a proper, bricks and mortar place and all the rest of it, I'd love to have like something from Lord of the Rings in there. I'd love to have, a classic Warhammer board, a classic sort of 40k trench board, things like that. But definitely a Lord of the Rings board is in there for me.
With all the,
Yeah, I'd
the
love
Forge
to
World.
just be mucking it together.
Yeah, it'd just be fun to do it, right?
Together,
there's-
like film
there's-
it in a studio. It's a
I
dream.
think as well with and I've always been more of a fantasy fan than a sci-fi fan, but because Warhammer, which is I guess my main sort of setting that I like to hobby in, is because Age of Sigmar's gone much more Age of Sigmar, you know, and sort of much more high fantasy and much more bit out there. I got a lot of nostalgic love for classic sort of, you know, the little railway trees, you know, textured tables, not mats, you know, textured boards. I know they're not as fun to play on. Mats are great, but just for the look of it, like a classic board with just some trees, little river, maybe a bridge that you fight over. Oh, it's too good.
Mats are too new school, aren't they? And you can't cut a board like this when they change the board size. So this is why you need one. I can't get the scissors out on this board, can you?
Exactly.
Such a good thing to
6x4 for life.
There's what was the bloke's name who came to the Heresy launch? Zorp. He makes some amazing boards, doesn't he? He's another good channel to check out. Anyone we mention, as usual, for our picks and all the rest of it, we'll make sure we pop their socials down in the description so you guys can go and follow them if you don't already. I'm sure most of you do though. So but that was my first pick. And I think we're being
doubled up, mate.
Bit indulgent. Yeah, well, Rich isn't here, so I thought, fuck it, I'm having
doubled it.
I've got to try and keep the language better. If we want to get adverts one day, I've got to try and not swear so much. Right, what's the especially after we had Robert on the other week.
You should have seen him at the awards ceremony.
Filled our quota, that one. Yeah, I did have one more pick actually. Where is it at? Oh, that's that weird noise again.
Only one.
So this pick, and just don't mean this the wrong way, that this isn't necessarily this person's take on it. I've seen quite a few people doing this take now, but this was the first one I saw. There's a character called Corswain. He's like the sort of first captain kind of idea of the Dark Angels. And there's a lot of people have been using this, one of the new Praetor models from the Age of Darkness box, and been doing some fantastic conversions using him. And this is just one of them that I'd seen chucked up in one of the groups, and then found them on Instagram as well. And I'm well tempted. Yeah, quite fancy it. The reason is because I'm looking at Dark Angel stuff at the moment.
Get it done
for a project. And I definitely haven't been like storing up little baggies of Dark Angels bits.
We swapped, didn't we? We swapped Dark Angels.
Yeah, to do some.
I painted a dead one as well.
Yeah. We all see, I know, shocking behaviour. But yeah, it's really nice. You know, the box has been out, best a month now, has it? Something like that? Nearly 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
2 years ago, wasn't it?
I know, right? But it's lovely to see like all the community like getting their hands on it now. They've had a bit of time and creative with it. I think the Praetors in particular they're a pretty big departure for Heresy stuff in the one sense. I don't think they're as big as people make out necessarily. I think it's just the fact that they're modern miniatures, and the last Praetors we got were 10 years old.
Not
they were
very good.
You know, but it's I know when I got the box and put them together, it was like, these are very, very convertible models. You know, they've put them together very sympathetically for kit bashing. And I'm going to be interested to see if that's a theme going forwards, whether like, because, you know, when we first started getting all the CAD stuff and the plastic characters and all of that, they were not easy to convert, right? There was a lot of missing detail if you sawed various bits off and all of that. I'm wondering if it's got to that point now where they're so good at it, they are almost creating it now where it is easier to create the pieces in identifiable parts. That makes sense.
I think it's down to the sculptor personally, because it's like, it's going to depend on their ethos and what they want to achieve like out of the kit, I really think. And these Heresy kits are a different team, I believe, to like the normal GW stuff. I'm pretty sure this is right. I think Will Hayes did like, you know, the Dreadnoughts. I'm sure I heard that, and that's why they're so good. And I do think it tends to be down to the individual sculptors' things and how the kit turns out. So maybe if you've got one who was like, you know, originally a Forge World guy, a Heresy guy, they're like, I want to make this into loads of bits because people want to convert it. That's my opinion anyway, just from seeing the various kits come out, and then after you go, who sculpted that? Okay. And I always like to ask that when I see staff, like when you're at an event, if there wasn't the information out there because they don't publish it, I'm always like, who sculpted this? And I ask about my favorite kits. So I found out at the weekend that Steve Party sculpted the Venari Lord Regent that I love. And I found who's the Seb Perbit did Teclis, and I'm like, cool. Those are my two favorite things from that range. And yeah, there's a reason why they're great, right? Seb and Steve Party.
I'm trying to think what the release was. Might have been Primaris. I feel like it wasn't. I feel like it was more interesting than Primaris. But they had a few of the. I think they had Jez and they had Seb on. I think to talk about some stuff, and it was interesting to hear about some of the models being designed like by committee, basically. That must be interesting. Like
it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I think me and Matt were saying earlier just how far it's come from when a lot of us got into the hobby, where you knew just about everyone that worked at Games, or knew of rather everyone that worked at Games Workshop. Right, you knew the like 6 sculptors, the 5 to 10 heavy metal painters, the rules writers, the lore guy. That was it, kind of thing. And it's just the team there is just it's just vast.
I think it's over 30 sculptors and over 20 heavy metal painters around that.
It's been over 30 sculptors for a few years. And specialists, it's over 30 heavy metal, isn't it? Because specialists have got 10 and regular have got best part of 20, haven't they? So
it's a lot, and that's why we get lots of amazing miniatures every week, and we can't stick to projects because they send me Sylvaneth and New Heresy and Eldar all in the same 6 months. You're killing me, all right?
They're hiring more heavy metal painters because there's a job posting up again.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, get your collarbone fixed, Robin, and get cracking with a knacking, yeah?
How's the chat getting on? All lots to talk of World Model Expo already, so we're getting to that, guys. Don't worry. Oh, Todd's checked in. It must be early in the morning for us. Todd, our roadie from the other side of the world, who's done a stellar job actually sorting the Discord out. So if I remember, I'll stick the Discord link in the description. The Patreon guys have been sort of testing it out for the last week or so, seeing how it's going, and we're working on it to get it to be something worthwhile. Right, that's enough of my picks and tangents. What's up next, Matt?
Well, you did send me 3 images, so did you want your last
so
pick?
the next image is the chat. That's Courseway. So yeah, that's what the conversion's based off.
Can you get this bust on Thingiverse?
I
3D
think
printer goes Bert or whatever it is.
It's from the special edition Black Library books, isn't it? They did these sort of marble bust type pieces of artwork, which is a cool idea. But I've got an idea of the head I'm going to use for him. So yeah. Need to figure out where to get the lion from, though. I don't really want to buy an entire Constantine Valdor model just to nick bits of a lion off him.
Well, I'll have the rest of it.
We will see. Right. Who's next?
So
Who's next?
Okay, here we go.
My one.
Ooh.
So
speaking of nostalgia.
Very nostalgic. So this was actually at World Model Expo, and it took what was it? Silver. Silver in the green category, which is pretty cool. It's Juan Diaz, I think his name. I'll pronounce
That's the original sculpture.
Is that
right? It's
Juan Diaz?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So he apparently had an itch to get back and do some greens, and this was what he came up with.
Is he flipping the bird?
But yeah, no, he's the V for Victor in it. Yeah. It's the twin tail comet.
But
he's not flipping the bird.
No.
Okay.
He's doing the more polite one.
But yeah, it's sort of he says in his post it's like a homage to the 90s Jez Goodwin sculpt with like the insect helmet, and I thought it was pretty epic to see, and all green as well.
That is an injection of nostalgia, isn't it?
Yeah.
So where did he go, Juan Diaz, when he left? Did he stop sculpting?
I don't know.
I thought I'm sure didn't he do Avatars of War? Isn't that Juan Diaz went off and did that?
I
those
think he did
awesome
other companies. But...
Those I'm sure it was Avatars of War was him. Just great single miniature fantasy characters that looked a lot like classic / Warhammer Fantasy characters. Was it Avatar? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called Avatars of War. Back before your 3D printing and whatnot, they were a really cool alternative. I'm sure that was him.
I always remember you could tell it was his sculpt because of the power fists. They like had these fingers,
right?
And if it was you're like, oh, well, that's Juan because of the power fist, and that's pretty cool. You wouldn't get. I don't know if you'd get that so much now, but yeah, it was cool that you could tell just by his power fists on the space screen.
Someone's saying in the chat that was Felix Panigua, not Juan Diaz. And there we go. Yeah, the Diaz horrors and the demonettes, wasn't it? They're quite sought after models. Those two.
It's so good. Like the detail he's getting out of green stuff, and just the clean lines. I don't know how you do that. It's just mental.
Ask Barry on our Patreon.
I was going to say Baz will be absolutely frothing.
Baz needs to do one of these.
He does, mate. He's working on it. We're looking for some Baz originals, not that far away. He's getting, and there it is.
He picked up silver.
Love that. That's a separate award, by the way, to the World Model Expo. So,
okay.
Because Scale Model Challenge were the hosts, and I'll explain this complicated thing in a minute. But they did Scale Model Challenge is obviously about scale modeling, so they did their own Scale Model Challenge Green Awards. So it's kind of like a separate category, which is really cool. So yeah, that's why it's a Scale Model Challenge medal. So you can get those medals when you go to Scale Model Challenge. But it's really nice to see all the greens and the sculpting separately. I think it's really important.
Lovely.
Nice.
Right. Great pick.
Next up, and I think this one's yours, Andy.
Yeah, this is the pick, isn't it? Yeah. So I think that this, certainly from my point of view, because I'm obviously hanging out with the fantasy painters lot, this was just the talk of the town. This was the standout piece, and maybe we'll talk about it in depth later, but there's no best of fantasy award. There's just a best of show. But I think if there was a best of fantasy award, it would be probably no contest. This would win it. So it's Albert Moretto font, and he pours in so much time into every piece, which is why they turn out so great. But this dwarf was his latest, and he spent 18 months on it, on one figure, which I'm really jealous of being able to focus and do that.
Well, we spoke about that, didn't we? And I think our first ever might even have been the pilot episode, because I think no, it wasn't. Was it the artwork models from artwork or something? Because we picked his goblin that's in that trio.
You
mentioned how you mentioned how he'd spent a year or whatever painting it.
I think the dwarf was a year for sure. I can't remember what he did on the goblin. The goblin's actually my favourite out of the three, but we've seen that before. But this new dwarf, it was on the shelf. I mean, it's a huge base, immaculately painted, and everyone was looking at it, everyone was talking about it, and it definitely inspired me the most. Not necessarily in terms of dwarves and the style, but it's all about the work. And that's what inspired me. Like, work harder, and you can do pieces like this.
The precision, it's just immaculate. There's just there's nothing to fault with it. It's impossible. It's just perfection. So good.
It's pretty close. It's great, and I love the base. This is cool. I've not seen all these whips, but my word, look at those scales.
Look at those paints in the background.
Yeah, that's
still sealed.
That's why it's good. It's the old paints. I think the rock's mental. That looks hideous to paint to that level. Like, it's so big. And the thing. Oh, it's worth noting that it's sculpted by Alan Carrasco, who is one of my favourite sculptors. And he's never done this kind of collab before, doing a one-off. So, but if you're going to do a one-off, then you should let Albert have it. because he'll put the effort in. He won't rush it like me. But yeah, it's just amazing, and yeah, it definitely inspired me the most just to push my game.
Look at them painted shadows on the backs of the arms. I'm not imagining that, am I?
I'm pretty sure they're there. There's a lot to look at. I can't remember it all, but yeah, it's crazy. It's the little cuts and the hair for me on the arms. They're just crazy. The hair on the hands actually is one of my favorite things.
Ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Very
cool.
Very cool.
I don't know how he gets the transition so smooth.
Spends a year and a half on it, mate.
Yeah, like one glaze a day.
It's the same level of finish that Soper gets, you know, that kind of near perfect finish. And yeah, the thing that's in common with these two is they put the time in. So it's kind of like, yeah, this is what you got to do. But yeah, you look at him and Soper, and I'm inspired by both of them for the effort. I mean, I've got bored of something I started a week ago, so I'm a terrible person.
You paint nice things though, mate. Don't put yourself down. It's a great pick. Just to jump into the chat quick, we've got the story. We've got the hot take on what happened to Juan Diaz, the Juan Diaz story. So this is thanks to the obsessive converter. Don't know how true this is, but it's a good story. He first went to Zenit Miniatures, doing minis for Kensei. Don't know that. And the last thing he knew was he quit sculpting, went out the system, and became a farmer.
That's cool.
Grows his own crops and cattle. So there we go. And as someone says, the painting world's loss was the farming world's gain. So there we are. Yeah. Fair play. Todd's asking in the chat, now that everything's opened up again, events back up, etc., do we think that the global skill level, for what that's worth, would increase rapidly due to what's been shown off so long? Yeah. Are you going to touch on that in the main thing?
If you want to ask about it.
Hey, jump into it now, mate, if you want to. I don't want to.
Shall we do it? Shall we start the segment?
Let's do it then. We haven't got any more slides, have we?
Nope.
No memes.
No memes.
Right. So just so we can do the chapters and whatnot. So yeah, main subject for those of you that aren't aware and haven't listened to our last episode, SMC/World Model Expo happened this weekend just gone. Andy was able to get out there. And basically, if you've got any questions about it, fire them into the chat, or else just sit back and listen to his report of what was hot, what was not. Good ratings of the facilities. Take it away.
So, first of all, there is some confusion, and I was going to explain it when we did the interview, but I thought I'd save it, about what the World Model Expo is, what Scale Model Challenge is, and, when is it. But basically, the World Model Expo is a triannual show. So it's only every 3 years. And what happens with it is it rotates around the world. So it goes between America, somewhere in Europe, and the venue is never the same. So they never repeat the venue, which is really cool. Scale Model Challenge is a show that's every year in Eindhoven. I've been a few times. And what happened was the guys at Scale Model Challenge, which are Margot and Robert, they were, for one time, they were the hosts of World Model Expo. Because they're known for doing such a great job at SMC, they were the hosts this one time. And that's why the confusion is, because instead of the normal SMC, this time they were running the World Model Expo at their venue. So the next time the World Model Expo is on, which is in 3 years, will be in France. And next year in 2023, we'll go back to that normal SMC. But yeah,
so there you go, Heimdall. You can calm your tits. I think we've explained it, so everyone's happy with where we're at with it now. But it was something that we had a few questions about from the last episode. So yeah, thanks for clearing that one up, bud. Yeah,
I mean there were SMC medals as we just shown, so it was even more confusing. It was even more confusing. But yeah, it's basically the SMC's host of the World Model Expo, and the SMC has just become one of the best annual shows. So I knew this was going to be special because they just got that track record, and it was heightened even more because it was supposed to be in 2020. and obviously that got postponed 2 years. So this was a 5-year wait from the World Model Expo. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. I'll be going to that.
Sorry, man, how long has it been? Yeah, how's it been going for?
They did tell me, and they always say this is like the 12th Model Expo or something, but it's like 30 years.
Yeah, a long time then. Yeah,
I'll get the facts, but it's old. But it was more a historical show, and then the fantasy is gradually built and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be more awards separate for the fantasy. But yeah, it was mostly a historical show, and now there's a really nice balance of the best historical and fantasy in one show. So I think the SMC that I went to in October 2019 had, I think it was 1,600 entries of individual models. Obviously, like, people can bring a few models, so it's kind of skewed how many people were actually entrants, but there was that many figures entered. So I entered like 5 pieces, so one person's contributing multiple pieces. But this World Model Expo hit the 4,000 barrier, and I would love to know if any competition ever has hit 4,000, because this has got to be one of the most biggest shows ever. And you could tell because I turned up not late, because you could enter on Saturday, and I turned up on Friday. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're late." I'm like, "What do you mean late? It's Friday. We can enter tomorrow." And there was literally no room for my figures apart from the edge. So you had the edge of the table, and I put my figures here, and they were just ready to be knocked off. But I'm so impressed with the organisers, because they shut the room and they rearranged everything. And you came back the next day, and they'd added extra tables. They'd spaced it out. My stuff had been moved from one side of the room to the other, like a good 10 meters. And they'd given me a nice space. And, you know, it was really cool, because I basically was like, I felt bad because you're like blocking someone's piece. I was on the edge. So it just felt brilliant that they put that care in. And then when you came back on Saturday, you could see all of the pieces. I did not look at them all. I mean, I normally take the time to look at every piece. At Golden Demon, I would have seen every single model for sure, but you just couldn't get around. It was a really special show, and I think that 5-year hiatus obviously helped with that. You know, a lot of people bought, you know, the last 5 years of work or just their best stuff, and it was just an atmosphere of kind of joy that we were back doing it. And like you said, what you were asking before is, has the level gone up? And yeah, it just has. The general level was crazy. You look at the different classes, because you've got master and standard. Just everything in standard was really great, really creative. Yeah, it was. I was quite shocked at how good everything was, because you're going into like a competition and you're gauging how well you're going to do. And I didn't really feel like, you know, better than anyone there, because you're like, cool, I've got this cool backdrop piece, and which was my first backdrop piece, and there was 200 backdrops, and loads of them were so much better than mine. And I'm like, okay, like the stuff in standard, and their quality of their painting in the backdrop was better than mine, and yeah, it was just really cool. Just too much to look at.
1993. So this was the 11th World Model Expo.
There you go.
So there we go. Nearly 4 decades. Well, it sounds like you had a pretty amazing time, to be honest. And I think you managed to take a fair few pictures, did you not?
I did my best. I missed Matthew, and I didn't take my big camera. And I thought, oh, this little camera will be all right. It wasn't quite the same with my other lens
Don't
on.
worry,
but
mate.
Anyway,
the enthusiasm, and again, we'll make sure we link to all the accounts that we possibly can. But also, do go and follow World Model Expo and SMC, Robert and the guys at SMC, because they work hard and they present stuff well. It's very, very easy to find out information about what they do. And there's tons of pictures from all the previous year's winners and entries and things like that. So yeah, hopefully this sort of whets your appetite, but do go out and check those other places out for more information on it. So where are we? Oh, someone was saying they saw you feverishly hunting for a spot on Friday to put your miniatures in?
I was like, where can I go? I was like, right, I'm going to put one here, one here. Well, it was because everyone was stressing me out because they're like, why are you so late? I was like, what? This is the earliest I've ever been.
So Two-Way reckons he saw about 15% of the entries. How many do you reckon you managed to get around?
Honestly, so I focused on, my category, Fantasy Master, but just because I'm interested in the fantasy stuff. And I didn't see every piece in that. I think from that category, I must have seen, I'd say 80% of that category. And then I saw all the standard stuff because that was actually not as crowded. So it was easier to look at that. But I did look at historical, but I didn't see the best of show in person, which is obviously really annoying. As soon as I saw a photo of it, I was like, that's going to get the best of show. And I saw some people like Mike Blank's piece in person, who's, the sort of guy who wins best of show at this, sort of classic historical guy. But yeah, there's loads of stuff, and I've seen photos and I've gone, wish I'd seen that. But it was the busiest show ever, and you're just catching up with people. So I probably spent more time just having fun chatting and stuff than looking at the pieces. But I was inspired enough. That's what you go for. I saw enough to completely inspire me. And
I think that's fair to talk about the inspiration and all that. And I think most people get that feeling when they come away from a show or a tournament, if you're a gamer, or even sometimes just a gaming night with your mates, right? If it's been really good. But I think, especially given the last few years, there was a lot more pressure on all of that, wasn't there? So I think it came to me anyway, listening to Robert talk and in the last show, and you talk about going to previous ones and the wine and cheese and all that sort of thing. It became very clear that there was a very strong community out there, that a scene, as it were, and a global, yes, probably Eurocentric, but that's just geography. But there is a global miniatures painting community, and I mean that in the truest sense. I don't just mean a Games Workshop painting community. It is an enormous group of people that clearly value these events, right? And you sort of we often talk about niche within a niche within a niche, don't we? Right? And then it's one of the loveliest things about this hobby is when you go to an event, you can talk to nearly anybody. You've got common ground, right? So you got a chance. I imagine that must be what this is like for the high level competition painters, right? I'm not trying to make out that you're better than other people and therefore you can't talk to other people about painting, but there must be a thing when you get people at the top of their game together. That's going to be a wonderful place to be, right? And for them, and for you guys to push each other. And again, it's this strange. Well, I follow strongman, right? It's probably my favorite sport to follow, and I know that's an actual sport, and I know it is competitive in the one sense. But one thing that always comes across in that is actually that the people that take part in it often care as much about the spectacle as much about a fellow competitor getting a record, doing the best they've ever done. And to me, it comes across like that a lot with the painting, more so when you talk about these broader shows. I think when I first met you, when you were heavy into all the mini demons, all the, I'd come along and I'd listen, and it could be a little catty. There was a few little, remarks and cliques and things like that. But it doesn't come across like that whenever you've talked about Monty or SMC or World Model Expo. It's interesting. I'm really looking forward to experiencing it, as an outsider.
Yeah, I definitely think that I'm fortunate enough to have done enough shows to understand what they're about. And they are competitions, but because I've gone to them a lot and I look forward to seeing people, you eventually realize that is the focus. And I love competitions. I'm a competitive person. I'm not going to bullshit about that. But the best thing is seeing all the people. And what's really cool about this picture with all these people is I know most of them and they're friends. I could message them and be like, all right, and that's super cool. And I really love how it's so international. And next to me, I've got Italian, Polish, American, Spanish, which is just really cool that it brings all these people from all over the globe, and we all just talk. And there is kind of zero cattiness and bitchiness. You see someone, you chat, and you just want to talk about their pieces. Like see Albert turn around, I love his piece, and you look at it, and it's only positive. I've seen some good questions in the chat actually.
We'll go for it. Take them.
Or someone said it made them feel emotional to see how happy everyone was to be back at events, and it was very much like that. And Tue asked a really good question. He said, what was the best part of the show? Seeing the miniatures, the vendors, or talking to people? And yeah, for sure, it was talking to people in the community, because it gives you the motivation to bother with these things. Like it makes it worth it. Really interesting. What was really interesting for me is, talking about the drive for competitions and competitiveness, is I did all these pieces, or the pieces I was most proud of in my display anyway, were done with no competition in sight. So I did most of them the beginning of 2020, and it wasn't for a show. I just did them because I like them, and so it was kind of weird to finally enter them, but it didn't feel like it was for a competition, because I just did them because I wanted to do them, So it's a very different feeling. And I think not painting a piece until the last minute probably changed my kind of attitude to that as well. Because I had my Techless, and everyone asked me, where's Techless? Which was kind of nice, because I was like, people have seen what I've been up to. But I feel like that's a sign of me growing, because I didn't rush it. So I'm taking the lessons from Albert and Dave, I think there.
Do you think the open format, which again we discussed in depth on the last show, do you think that has an impact on the pressure's the wrong word, the tension, if you will, at an event? If you're going to an event and there's only one gold, do you think that's sorry, Matt, you go on.
No, I was going to say, definitely. If it's the first past the post, like 1, 2, 3, you definitely get more tension, and people would be like, well, my thing was better if it didn't place. There does get that sort of thing. You can see it in just like in GD all the time.
I mean, that's if you look at the picture again. I mean, people might not know the faces to the names. But you've got Lan in there next to me, who's...
And I think you were saying, was it Lan was the reason they had to put out 20 more tables, wasn't it?
I think he brought every piece.
Let me find a picture.
I need to go back to that one to do the names. That was Lan's stuff.
Lan's shelf.
It's just... I mean, that's really cool, though, that you get to see all of them.
Absolutely.
If you're a fan of his, you don't want to see just one.
Well,
you get to learn, right?
That's a question I was going to say, but I'll ask it now. Do you, and I will be attending a lot of these events now going forwards, but as a fan, not as a competitor, do you get a lot of that at it? Or do you think the majority of people there are also entering? Because you've been very much, you don't go to Golden Demon without painting and entering something, right? And it's like, okay, but like you're saying, it's very exciting for me to think, these are things I've seen online over the last few years. I'd love to see them in person and view it more as a gallery show.
Yeah, I mean, like the when I say like can't go to Golden Demon without painting, I look at it from like me as a painter point of view. Like if I turned up and knew I hadn't painted something, I would feel disappointed in myself. But if I was going for like just to look at it, that's cool as well. But I always have to go and have something to enter, otherwise I feel like I've gone empty-handed.
No, I certainly don't think one's right or wrong. It was just sort of and again, Golden Demon is my only real significant frame of reference. If we're talking for size of shows, and I know again it's a lot smaller than this, but Golden Demon has traditionally always been at another event. You know, it's never been a thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
So naturally, there's always been people attending it and looking at the models that have nothing to do with entering it. And I was just wondering, Andy, whether it was similar with World Model Expo, whether there was a lot of other, or everyone is going there to enter.
Yeah, I'll try and get the stat on the tickets sold, because I know the entrance, the people that entered the show was like 800 and something. And there must have been like a couple thousand there. I mean, I spent my time mostly with a group of 6 and then me, and I was the only one that had entered out of that group. So there was 6 of my friends had come, and none of them had entered, which I told them off for. But you know, that's a good chunk of people who hadn't. Difficult to gauge because a lot of my friends obviously had entered. So, but yeah, I think I'd have to know what the stats are on like tickets. But I would say, you know, loads of people are entering, but there was a ton of people just there to look at stuff.
Nice.
I wouldn't mind just going back to that picture, because there's a few people have asked and sort of been talking about the top 3 and why it wouldn't work at this show. I just want to go back to that picture, because basically when you see the people entering, you can see why it'd be kind of hard. But yeah, so I was saying you got Lamb Studio next to me, who's obviously ridiculously good. Steve Garcia, Arnau Lazaro, Ruben, Christoph Gabaski, David Aroba, all those guys are just, you know, when you list people's favourite painters, they're going to be in it. And just to think only 3 of them could get a gold.
Yeah, it's just
kind of crazy.
Not possible.
You just couldn't do it. The thing is, there's a lot of things to balance it out, because you imagine a top 3 competition, there's multiple categories like single fantasy, single sci-fi, diorama, dual. All those things go into this category that I was in, which was just fantasy painting at the master level. So I had stuff that would be diorama. I would have stuff that would be single figure, bust. So all of those are completely different models, actually. And they're just in one category. Where there's maybe another show, I'd put like a fantasy single, a bust. I've got 2 dioramas, so that's why it does kind of balance. So you've got people with these different pieces and stuff. They might be split in different categories, but here it's just stuff that you've painted basically that you haven't sculpted yourself. So I love both styles of competition. I think if you're exclusively doing one, you're missing out. I will always love Golden Demon, and it's interesting thinking about the satisfaction of winning a first to the post. And I've sort of chatted with people, and I don't think they see the open system that they might not be as satisfied, because they're like, well, anyone can win a gold. And it's like, I was fairly chill at the show, but when it came to the awards, I was like, oh God, it was horrible, because you saw the standings, and I was just thinking, you know, what am I going to get? And I was waiting. The bronze names got called out, and I was just sitting waiting on the bronze section. And I was like, nothing. Okay, right. When's the silver coming? And then we went through the silvers, and I was like, oh, what? I've got nothing or a gold. And I was genuinely, really like so satisfied to get that gold. And there was a lot of people that got a gold, but then you list the names and you feel fulfilled. You're like, oh no, I'm sharing a gold with Ruben, David Aroba, Lan. Oh no, I feel so awful that more than one person got gold. No, these are the best. So it feels fantastic. And then you really get more of that sense of community, because instead of like, oh, sorry, you haven't got an award and you've spent, 2 years on your piece and you feel like crap. It's like, cool, you feel great, and you're kind of celebrating with people. But on the flip side, I still love the top 3, because each piece gets it's like, if you get a gold in Golden Demon, people see it. You don't get lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think,
and a bit of drama's fun too. I think it's always fun when so and so piece should have won. Why is this piece should have won? I think for a casual fan, that has its own interest as well. It generates interest, doesn't it? I'm not saying it's a positive, but I'm saying it generates interest. Kane's asked in the chat, do we think that the open format is good for beginners? as a first competition, as opposed to something like first past post style GD format. Speaking as someone who's only ever done Golden Demon, I think it was fine because they gave you feedback. So I didn't feel, obviously it went well, but I didn't feel that I'd lost out or anything by it not being an open format, because I was still able to get the sort of feedback and encouragement and things like that from there. What do you reckon, Andy? Like, I know when we've run comps, we've chosen to do the open, but that's just because it's something we enjoy. It's the what's the word? Attitude that we like to bring to it, But it's I do love a little bit of the rivalry stuff. I think it's good fun to watch.
I love both, and yeah, there's a lot to say, and we chatted about it a lot over the weekend. But the thing I find is I'll go to Golden Demon and a lot of people that are my friends aren't interested in this style show. And then I go to this show and they're not interested in Golden Demon. And I find myself as one of the few people that goes and enters both, to be honest. And I just think, go to both. There's merits. I can totally see why you wouldn't be interested in Golden Demon if you're doing shows like this. But yeah, I'm always going to love both, and more shows the better for me, because you get to do all the chatting and the hanging out. But yeah, there's it's scary doing the top three only. It's really gnarly, because you can do your best, but you kind of have to be like, there's only three, and you don't feel so bad. It's an interesting one. But certainly I was no less satisfied than winning at Golden Demon just a few months ago in this. So at both I was elated.
Right. Well, we'll stick a pin in the open versus the first 1, 2, 3 type thing, because I'm sure it's something we'll visit later, and it's stuff we've discussed in previous shows again as well. Did you want to talk about a few of the actual entries? I think you got some snaps of.
Yeah, we can whiz through.
Is that right?
This is the best of show.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's full scratch sculpt by I can't pronounce his name, Maurizio Bruno.
Yeah.
And Cartacci, I know. But yeah, it's one of these team jobs like you get in the fantasy, and full scratch, one-off piece. Pretty unbelievable dynamic.
When you say it's a team job, obviously, multiple. Does the prize go to the pair, or does the prize go to just the painter? Because it's entered in the painting category, as it were.
This is open. This will be open. So there's very few categories, but there's master painting and master open, basically. And this is a lot of the master opens are sculpted by one person and painted by another. I could have actually entered our pieces, because obviously there are the Cult of Paint miniatures into the open, but I chose to just keep my master painting. I just wanted my stuff together. But I will at some point enter the open category. But the open category is where you get these big combos of heavy hitters. So Albert entered his into open.
Right.
And this was also entered into historical masters open. And best of shows are pretty much always going to be on those categories. And you'll tend to find the same at Monty. And it's a subtle difference in category. But it's normally some big mental piece, as you know, with one amazing sculptor, amazing painter. And that's normally in this open category. And that's where basically the sculpting is taken into account. Whereas on my category, master painting, they're just judging the painting, because I didn't sculpt them. But it's like, this sculpting is judged, and it's quite frankly ridiculous, like how dynamic it is.
How big is this? Like,
I think was it an 85 mil?
Yeah,
it's bigger than 75 mil. It's big. It's pretty something. But like, I think the fallen horse at the front is my favorite.
Yeah,
just brilliant. But you
just don't see it, do you? You just don't see that type of sculpt in miniatures.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
I mean, just the little duel that's happening on the left, the mounted dude and the dude going at him with the bayonet. That's an amazing duel in itself, right?
Yep.
Pair of models, sorry, in and of itself. In fact, the whole piece is made up of them, isn't it?
It's 3 jewels.
Yeah, it's 3 jewels. Yeah,
but it's all in one. Yeah, and it's all to the highest level.
And some lad having a kip in the middle, but oh no, and that lad that's stuck in the horse's bum up the top right as well. It's a nice Ace Ventura in it out.
I saw this win in the category, and I missed the piece, which I'm ashamed and bummed about. I didn't catch it in the flesh because it was crowded with people. You just couldn't look at it basically, unless you barged your way to the front. But I saw the photo of it when they said this is gold, historical open, and I went, "That's going to get best of show, isn't it?"
What made you feel that? Because I mean, you're that's you 2 for 2. You called the Slayer sword skink, and then you've called this. So come on, you obviously got an eye for this, and he is available for judging. Please contact me.
I am available.
But yeah, what made you just go, this is it?
I mean, I text Rich Marlowe about it, and a couple of us in a group, and I was just like, I called this, and me and Rich both started going to these shows together. We did our first Monty together, and we just saw these kind of pieces always take it, and it just had that feeling. Right. So just from experience of going to Monty SMC, seeing these shows and seeing what they go for, and you can just tell this was epic. Historical piece. That's
a very interesting thing, and I would like to have a show in the future on judging. But it's that idea of just because someone's a phenomenal painter isn't necessarily going to make them a good judge, is it? You know, it's as you say, it's experience of events as well. It's understanding the landscape, you know, and the context for a lot of this. Andrew's just staying in the chat. Apparently, it's quite common in the old school historical stuff where they do the like broken horses and men and stuff, not so much in the fantasy. So thanks for that, Andrew. Again, I'm massively ignorant when it comes to historical miniatures. Something I'm hoping is going to change. But yeah,
it's pretty impressive. It's not my preference in just the painting style. Actually, I'd kind of like to see this painted in a fantasy way,
like an oil, like let Mark at it and do it like an oil painting type of thing. Yeah.
yeah. But what I understand is this is the highest sort of level at historical. So yeah, it's just crazy. I did find out there was a kind of top 3 for best of, and I think later I've got a photo of what was second. And personally, I thought the sculpting was amazing on what was second, but I didn't think the painting was incredible compared to something like Albert's. Yeah, very, very hard when you've only got a best of show and not a best of fantasy and best of historical, which I think is my preference because they're very different. And I'd love to have seen this best of historical, Albert best of fantasy, and then you're really celebrating both because you're not going historical is better than fantasy or the other way around.
Lentez is agreeing with you there, saying, yeah, we need some orcs on those horses. Just mix it. Mix it all together. A great high elf, not a high elf, a great goody elf on a horse, you say, would be an excellent model. It would, for a competition. I think it would. So was that the gossip, Andrew, by the way, about the best in show? Let me know in the chat. Cool. It is cool seeing this stuff when you just aren't exposed to it, right? And I like that it's challenging to try and understand why that's considered so good. You know, I understand why fantasy pieces are considered so good generally, right? Because that's the world I've chosen to earn my living in. But it, like you. Sorry, Matt, can you just go back to the slide for 2 seconds? And this isn't me trying to be, probably treading on thin ice with this, but like, I get that. I know that it's accuracy. I know is very important with historical stuff, right? So, like, I know a lot of work will undoubtedly have gone into making sure the fabrics and everything look correct and the colours on them and all the rest of it. But like, there's things straight away in there that I'm picking on and going, oh, that's not as smoothly blended, or that's not as, that's lit slightly unusually, or and when you'd compare it to, say, a fancy piece that we often see, and I would love to understand why that frame of mind, that viewpoint, that critique is not relevant for when judging this sort of piece. We must try and get some guys on to talk us through it, because it's a huge, not industry, but it's a huge sector of the miniatures painting world, right? I'm sorry, I'm not terribly with it tonight, guys. It's been a rough week, so sorry.
You're doing a great job.
My vocab's not great. My brain's gone to mush. But yeah, sorry. It's fascinating. So what's up on the next slide? What was that cool thing we were just showing?
It's David Aroba.
It's a dwarf, mate. It's already 11 out of 10.
It's an art from, is it Thug?
Trudvang?
Yeah, it's an art from that, and Hera Models have produced it. That's David Aroba. I love David's display. Was his best display. It was pretty crazy. I think he unveiled like 5 one-offs or something mental. It's just like, what? But yeah, this is for Hera Models. I think it's the best Hera Models figure for ages, actually. You're almost getting me to like dwarfs, but they're just way too close to home.
Todd's just saying in the chat, it'd be awesome to get a Daeguard range with dwarves on horses. I don't know, would dwarves ride horses, Todd? I don't know.
Nah,
I mean, put it this way, Daeguard 2, you've got at least one mounted miniature. So, yeah, I think you're gonna enjoy that, and trust me, the dwarves will be worth it when we get them. I'm just having a look in the chat there. Oh, so Andrew, so apparently the gossip was to do with the fact that only one artist, the painter, got the award, even though it was a collab. And supposedly that is not the normal way that goes. So that's interesting. I would love to hear more about that. Would historical be easier to judge? And Heimdall reckons historical must be a lot harder to judge because it's all painted in a very similar style.
Well, also, I did hear that they were Googling uniforms and being like, oh, is that the right colour?
that's an important thing, right? Like,
yeah.
So I just can't get my head around it. Dwarves ride ponies. Oh, well, there we are then.
Dwarves ride 7 heads. As shown.
Down.
Should we do another slide?
I think
there's a few.
This one is one that has made me just kick myself that I wasn't there again.
Yes.
I want to see this in the flesh, like really badly.
Again, featured on a very early show of ours.
Yeah, so this was cool because you got so many years and you got all these special one-offs from David. So this is sculpted by Alejandro, who sculpts Cotter Paint minis. Therefore, it's fantastic. But yeah, obviously, it's great. It's smaller than you think, this bust, which makes his painting, like even better. Because you look at this photo on the Instagram and you go, "Was it quite a big bust?" But no, it's tight, quite a small bust. Really, really nice. And next to it, off shot, is the other Stormcast. See, like he's got two special two Stormcasts that are one-off sculpt.
That one I could see winning at GD. I know when we saw the bust before, there was a really interesting discussion around would it even place at a GD, just because of was it the right model for the right competition. But this one I could see being less controversial.
But it would only go in open category.
Yeah.
Not eligible for the sword. I think you're going to see a lot of big scale stuff in the October one. I know at least 2. I would actually love a print of this in, I would say 28mm, but it's GW, so it's like 42mm now. But I'd like this in a normal Stormcast size, but this sculpt.
Yeah.
I'd like to do. I love large scale, but because then you could enter it into single figure, and then you're really, then you're leveling the playing field a little bit in terms of entries. yeah, I'd like to get, a one-off special sculpt, but in the normal scale for Golden Demon myself.
Tua's just saying in the chat that some of the judges in historical had brought books with them for uniform recognition.
That's a no.
So nothing to do with Googling it, mate. That's far too modern.
Books. Yeah. I got it wrong. No smartphone.
It's probably the original.
Sorry, Matt, go on.
Probably the original book from like 1800s.
Just sketch, isn't it?
They just brought photos
with swatches rather of the material. Nick is saying Matt would love to see the Age of Sigmar dragon in person. He's not sure if we've got that in any of the slides. Does that one ring a bell, Andy? Did you come across that one?
Don't see a dragon.
No. Oh well, stick us a link to.
There was a dragon about that big.
You've got a picture of it, Nick. Stick a link in the chat so we can take a look at some point. Right. It is. That's just cool.
Ooh. So this was not entered in the painting competition, but this was one of my favourite pieces by Mark. Mark was judging, so you didn't get to see his stuff in the show. But this piece was lovely to see. So this is Michael Contreras, the sculptor, and he entered in the open category, and he very gracefully put labels of all the painters. So he was like not trying to take credit. But this is cool because you get to see a Kirill Knieve piece next to Mark Masklan's, next to David Colwell, and you're like, cool. This is nice. So
for you, that's pretty spot on, right?
Yeah, I mean that's someone's top 3,
yeah,
for sure. It's definitely my top 10. I say Mark and Kirill are probably my 2 favorite painters, and I love Dave's stuff, and that was just so nice. And it's cool to compare them as well because you're like, okay, these are the world's best. Let's compare Mark's to Dave's, and that's really special actually. I need to pick Mark's brains about the NMM on the crest on that. It was an amazing color. Very, very cool. But that's why you got to go to these shows, right? Because look at them. They're not in a cabinet. They're just there.
Yeah.
And you've got these guys just sat plonked on a table to look at. And you'll learn more from looking close up with your eyes at these guys' stuff than photos. Because no matter who it is, you can see like the layers of paint and things like that. And it never takes away from someone's skill, but it helps you understand and just appreciate it a lot more. So you just can't beat it.
Nice. So that would have been what an entry looked like for the sculpting, or sorry, the open.
That is Michael Contreras, and he was in open, yeah.
So he would be saying, "Judge me on my sculpting."
Yeah, but those are the box arts for his sculpting work. I bought one of those figures actually. I quite like them. They're pretty cool. I'll never paint it, obviously.
Very nice. Oh, here we go.
Right. Now
here
we're
we
into
go.
the meat.
Oh my goodness, how big! I had no idea the orange one was that big.
Yeah,
we featured that several times. That's enormous.
I think is there an individual shot of it, Matt?
I didn't see one in that folder.
Obviously, get ready for us to gush for a bit now. I think we dedicated
my camera.
Best part of an episode to some of these pieces. So yeah.
I love.
But yeah, you get to see all these.
That's why I want to go.
The one with
this stuff.
The dead, like the Star Warsy one with the bluey background. That's a lot smaller than I thought it was.
Oh right, did you not know the GW Mini as reference then? Okay. We talked about that. You know, that's like a Forge World Mini, the robot.
I forged, yeah.
Right. Right. So talk about this painter who's in the chat and their work.
So I'm just confirming, but I'm pretty sure this took a gold in the open from Mr. Tue Kai. And yeah, I've seen these pieces before and they're just incredible. One of the most creative things. And this is one of the cool things when I said they rearranged the pieces, because they almost gave Tue his own spot. And they're just open. They're open like this. Again, I can't stress enough, no cabinets. How great it is just to look at this stuff. And also I got to sit and chat with him about these pieces and just talk about how important the grey backdrop is on the dead. I think it's called Big Game Hunter, and just the fact that it's left justified and there's a void of space on the right of it that you could just trim down and just have the backdrop behind the beast. But what does having a little bit of just grey, nothingness do? And it changes everything of your sort of perception of the piece. And it's very, very dark and grim and quite like an oppressive piece, which I think is really cool. Another tiny thing is the way the paper with the holes is left on the top of the walking library.
I was just about to say, I love that.
Without it, I don't think it would like hit me in the same way. I love that because I don't know what it is. I think people would interpret in different ways. Like it's like the way it's come off the artist's drawing and it's coming to life. I don't know. 2A's intention. He said he got gold for the walking library. So there you go. That's a gold.
Which is the piece that you're talking about with the paper on.
Yeah, which shows how they, at these kind of shows, they're willing to award creativity. And there's lots of different criteria that can get you to win a gold. And I just think that's really cool because there's never been a piece like this, ever. Like, you've never seen anything like it. And there's all, the backdrops and stuff like that. But this piece of paper with the rings left on and it coming out in black and white as well. Yeah, that's bold, isn't it? That is.
I'm pretty sure we've spoken to 2A about coming on, haven't we, and having a natter? I'm sure we have.
Oh yeah, and more.
Right, let's sort it out. Come on.
Yeah, hopefully workshops on backdrops.
Yeah. Oh yes, of course. Yeah. Right. What's up? I also would love to live on that boat on the right. So what's up next? Oh wow.
Oh yeah. Now this I've put on here because I didn't know the painter, and I thought, wow, I spend way too much time online looking at every model ever, and this is something I haven't seen. And I bought this figure because I really like it by Robot Rocket, and I just thought, what a perfect version! It's absolutely brilliant. Again, down to the choice of oval, I thought was very cool. I think the palette is fantastic. It's a sort of palette I love, but I probably would never do. It's very soft and subtle, like, the colours on that white cloak. So, yeah, I just think it was brilliant.
It's a lot of white as well, but they've managed to like make it contrast well, because like everything's clear, it's readable, doesn't get lost.
It's all off white. It's all very soft, like.
It's got a very porcelain finish as well, hasn't it? Which again fits the whole. The word be again, know
Oriental.
What I mean? The vibe, yeah, the whole vibe, the whole inspiration.
It's so different, and that's what's cool about these shows is your world gets totally messed up in seeing the type of pieces, and I just thought, wow, how many creative people are there here? I would never come up with this idea or this idea, and it really opens up your mind. Not just a miniature on a base, and just a miniature on a base is awesome, painted to the highest level. But and at each category as well, a lot of people and the judges said in a lot of years, standard people they've not got as much to lose or whatever, and they're braver and they come up with mental ideas. And you might see the most creative pieces in standard because they don't care about doing a box art or not winning and their reputation's down. They're like, I'm going to do this mental piece. So, it's pretty crazy, actually.
Very nice. Well, that's sort of lets us segue into a question we had absolutely ages ago, and one that I was going to ask you. Again, you don't necessarily have to have an answer for it, but were there any other than the general level being a lot higher? Did you see any trends appearing? Is there something that makes you think that's what's going to be hot next? This has had its day. Again, it's all weird because it's 3 years worth of stuff, and again, we've seen a lot of it online anyway. But were there anything that particularly stood out to you?
I think that, and I'll explain, there's a lot, and I mean a lot of backdrops. And I don't think that's because it's trendy. I think that's because people aren't afraid of doing them. and it's fun. You know, that's what it feels like when you looked at the pieces like these. You can see this person here has got 3 pieces, and they've all got backdrops. And it's, I think it's not a case of that's trendy, and it's not what wins competitions. It doesn't make a difference to you winning.
Yeah, don't conflate trendy and trends. Like it very much meant as a, are we seeing the style? You know, this is the so and so period of things.
Oh, for sure. Okay.
You know, so was there anything that sort of stood out from that point of view? I mean, it seems like Paul Bonner dwarfs were quite popular. Well, the whole Trevang thing was, but you know, because this is not something I've seen before. This sort of take on miniatures painting, you know, it's very different, and I would be interested to see more of that. But was there anything particularly stood in your mind other than to say a physical backdrop or anything? Having said that, mate, a lot of the backdrops we've seen have been a lot more creative than just a black drop plinth as well, right?
Exactly. That's I think people are very brave.
Framing a piece has become quite popular or important to people.
I think people are just super brave, and they'll try anything. And particularly someone you look at, and we featured Andrew, a Stroke of Luck's stuff before, but he got a gold, and his stuff is just crazy creative. We featured there was 2 girls eating noodles with a really nice, like, kind of coloured backdrop before.
Oh, yeah.
We had that as pick of the week. It was the Neko Galaxy minis and all his stuff. Yeah, just people will just try all these things. You know, people like 2A are probably sort of pioneers of that, of being super creative, and then other people are being brave and trying stuff. I will say I cannot remember one piece I saw with metallics. I can't remember.
Right.
One.
That's interesting. Well, I wonder if that's to do with Avuento says in the chat, AK Interactive Ultramat was one of the biggest winners of the of the event.
That was the difference between the last World Model Expo.
Also, Lucas Pina Sculpt still very, very popular. A lot of people painting those for comps, which is lovely. Gabby's asking, do you know who painted this Dragon Rider?
I did make a note of it because I found out and followed them, and I'll have to forward you the link.
We'll make sure we pop it in the description. We will make sure we come back and get that one done.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, why? I can't believe there's still people that are so good that I don't know. Because I look and I want to see it. It kind of blows your mind when you're so in this world and you think you've seen every good artist and painter and whatever. It's because they're not using the Paint Cultist hashtag, so it's not my fault.
The big tick there, mate. Well done. There we go. Now, as exciting, if you're interested in sort of backdrops and our thoughts on them, we did dedicate an entire episode to it, actually. Not that long ago. This year, maybe? Yeah, I think earlier this year. But again, it would be lovely to go to a show and see it. I saw in one of the snaps, I think actually on the website, it's got a picture. I don't know whether it's from this year's or last time's, whatever. But there, I noticed a lot of people using picture frames to present the models in, which is something I love. And it's great seeing people like Roman Lepat do it a lot at the moment. Was that a particular thing that sprung, that stood out?
I saw a few online. I saw a few images of like dioramas that have been put into like picture frame style things, and they just go back, which is really cool. Yeah.
People are just way more creative now. It's just blown up. People want to do all these different stuff, and it's, you got people like Rome and people like 2A who are going, be creative in miniatures, and then it's leaked out and it's got online and they're doing it.
Well, that does go right back to our first sort of episode where it's talking about miniatures painting as an art form, doesn't it? Because there's you were saying 2A's a pioneer with what he's doing, and it I think it's because you can't copy that. You can't distill that down and say, oh well, it's simply a backdrop and having 2D art become 3D art or whatever. It's not. It's the difference between someone being an artist in the one sense, right, of being able to imagine the concepts, having that element of creativity to them, but doesn't that doesn't mean that person is better or worse, right? It's you equally, you have people that are technically phenomenal painters, right? Who apply themselves and study and can break down and can understand theory, and they can then, for want of a better term, color in a model in the correct way, right? Using all of that theory. And then you get incredible pieces to look at, right? But actually the creative part of that, I would argue, isn't huge, because the model has been created. If it's been sculpted well, we always say this when we're working on our models, is, if you've done the sculpt well, you don't need a huge amount of background stuff to history of that model, because the sculpt should tell you the story, right? So if you get a model like Lucas Pina's, right, which are that good, they've done a lot of that creative work for you. And then if you take an artist or an art style that inspires you and you critically break it down and then replicate it, I don't think there is a huge amount of creativity there at all. But that doesn't mean it's not an incredible achievement or feat of painting or thing to enjoy, right?
Yeah.
So
sure.
it's going to be very, very interesting to see that clash or that broadening, right, of how it goes. And it's just another reason for me that I think we need to be shouting about the vast majority of people who, like us, are massive Warhammer fans, settings and miniatures, and understanding if you're into miniatures painting, you really need to go and get to other shows, right? Even if you then bring all of that creativity and inspiration back to your Warhammer, you'll be richer for it, right? Because you just won't see this breadth of, and this is an extreme case, 3 years, World Model Expo, all the rest of it, but you wouldn't see this at a Golden Demon competition, because you won't see 4,000 entries at a Golden Demon competition. Someone said earlier in the chat there was 5,000 tickets sold. So that gives us an idea, right? Sorry, I forgot who posted that.
I've seen a piece which will probably answer, what do dwarves ride? Definitely pigs.
Oh, pigs, of course. Yes, of course. Andrew's just said in the chat, that's a really interesting comment, as it may not be creative per se, but there's a lot of problem solving when it comes to that, translating a style onto a miniature, right? And that can be very creative, how you work around those problems. Just that, yeah, exactly right. That translation of 2D to 3D painting must be a challenge in and of itself. So yeah, I think it might be time to have another one of those episodes soon, because it's certainly something that gets my juices going with it. I love this model, by the way. Like, love it.
That's a dwarf, and it's got a critter.
It's the pig. The pig's face is just perfection. We had it on not long ago, didn't we? Was it someone's pick of the week? I think
it was my pick of the week. Yeah.
Just much joy.
Really
so
good.
I think were there any more slides that you really wanted to touch on, Andy, or
can't remember?
Well, in that case, I could just cycle through them while I have a waffle, and if there's anything that stands out,
I'll go stop.
That's very different. That reminds me like Rackham type stuff back in the day. That's LAN, is it? You said okay.
We did that one. Yeah, let's go through. There's LAN.
That red.
It's the LAN shelf.
There's
my boat, my house boat. Oh wow, what's that?
That's Ivan Ortel, who's next to me. But yeah, he's fantastic. And
that's amazing.
A miniature.
What, the snail?
Yeah.
The snail's a miniature, and then you got the backdrop.
It's just like the perspective and like the 2D-ness of it is throwing me off.
It's
very
cool. We need to
find some better snaps of that and have a chat on that one, I think. That's really cool. There's some nice ones in the top left there as well.
This was my second favorite piece. This was really, really cool. This is blurring the lines, 100% art and minis. I thought it was wonderful. the focus on the skin and the left, and how subtle the backdrop is, but how much it adds. I don't know. I just think it's really cool.
Was this R now? No.
No,
because I'm sure I'd seen him paint.
I'd never. No, it's similar, but I'd never heard of this person either, or not heard. I didn't know who it was. It's just
I like how.
Okay.
I like how one of the birds is a miniature, and three of them are painted.
Yeah.
That is very cool.
But I'm assuming the two pieces either side of it are the same artist as well, right?
No, that's Ivan's behind. You can see the stick. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, the stick, of course. That's how the entries are separated, right?
They give you a stick.
Sticks. Yeah.
They go, here's a stick, and you're like, cool.
Oh boy. Well,
but that one was great.
Amazing. It looks like an incredible show. So congratulations to the organisers and everybody who went along to it, and obviously everybody who entered and took home some goodies as well. I've seen a bunch of people actually using the Paint Cultist hashtag posting their ill-gotten gains, their medals and whatnot, which is really cool. That's lovely that they want to share that as well. So yeah, looked amazing, mate, and I'm very much looking forward to getting to these shows next year. I know not World Model Expo obviously, but I'm looking forward to getting out to SMC as it will be next year, and Monty and whatnot.
We'll have a stand.
It's an exciting time, mate. It's been a weird few years, but I think it's going to be very interesting how the painting shows go for the next few. I think there's a lot of pent up energy wanting to get out and share stuff, right?
Unlimited power.
Yeah, unlimited power. Wicked. Well, in that case, just conscious of the time, let's run on to the last section of the show. So thanks for taking all those pics as well, mate. That was really, really cool.
Did my best. Sorry, Matt.
No, it's nice, mate. And I think what 2A saying we ought to have pig of the week. Yes, possibly. We may have critter of the week for a while. I mean, that's generally my picks anyway. But yeah, I think we.
Isn't it?
It's coming up in a sec. But yeah, it's the enthusiasm, mate. It definitely comes across. You know, I think it sounds like it was a pretty special event, this one. So last segment, this is where we have a look at what the hashtag Paint Cults have been up to. So if you are looking for a hashtag to follow on Instagram, try this one out. It'll expose you to lots of different styles of painting, lots of different miniatures, lots of different accounts you may not have come across in your sort of normal sphere of influence. There's well over, I see 12,000 things on there now. And all we do is every couple of weeks, one of us will go through, pick a few that stand out to them and share them with you lot and the rest of it. So I can never remember what I pick because it's always a few days ago. Well, usually a few days ago. And what we got up first? So Critters, obviously. This is an account I know we featured before. What I've got to try and do is remember why I picked these things before I had whatever the hell I've had the last 3 days. And I can't really remember a lot, but I know there was a reason I picked several of these slides, so that's good preparation.
That's cool.
I think it might have just been the colours.
Vibrant.
Yeah, I think it might just have been, just seeing something a little bit different.
Do you remember the Kirill piece that was like similar? And I think he had his fingers together like this, and it had all those amazing NMM bracelets. And it had the big hat the same. And it was similar colours like orange and blue. It was pretty crazy.
Oh well, perhaps it's an actual character, like I'm not aware of. Perhaps it's a fantasy character. I'm going to be really sort of crappy now. And I'm actually going to go through the Paint Cultists, and I'm going to just read underneath them. God, there's so many already. There's tons since I picked the other day. What's up next, Matt? While I'm doing this.
That's cool.
This is just cool, right?
Yoda.
Like, what's with the weird mosquito bot Yoda's on? Is that a Star Wars?
That's a thing, isn't it?
It's from the Separatists fleet stuff.
The Clone Wars thing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Is that in Attack of the Clones, that bug thing?
It was used, when they're like, I think it was more in the cartoons, the cartoons Clone Wars one. There's definitely an episode where they're like rappelling up a wall and they're coming down, which was really cool. But yeah, it's part of the trade. No, is it part of the Trade Federation?
The Trade Federation.
Yeah.
I was going to say, there's bound to be someone in the chat knowing this one, surely. Surely.
Anyway, I love that. I'd like to play a game with that instead of a Contemptor.
Just bizarre, right? Very, very fun. Very, very cool. And again, just a lovely, sweet little scene, you know. Yeah, it's nice. Nice to see some square edges as well.
No square bases ever again.
Oh, just you wait, mate. The rats are coming. So what is up next? Lovely.
Love this mini.
Such a good miniature. Yeah, I wonder if this one suffered with coming out during COVID and all the rest of it. I wonder whether.
I've seen a lot of people paint it. To be honest, I've seen a few.
Rich did that amazing one, didn't he? Rich Gray. It's just a mini I want to buy and paint.
I've got one if you want.
From the description,
Obviously.
It took bronze at Fantasy Figure Painting Masters at World Model.
Lovely. There's a few World Model Expo entries in this, which is why they're in there. So yeah. Oh yes, it is, because the picture I probably would have sent you was the one with it next to its medal, was it?
Yeah.
Thanks for that, bud. Matt helping me out here with not writing my results. But it's just like, I think what I more wanted to touch on with it, the miniature's cool, don't get me wrong, but it's really lovely that people are wanting to share that they're at these competitions and they're doing them in that Paint Cultist hashtag as well, because hopefully what it's doing is it's not just exposing you to other accounts. Hopefully what it then does is encourages you to maybe reach out to those people occasionally or ask them about what they've done, and hopefully that can build that network a little bit more, so that when we can all, you know, sometimes meet up in person as well and do these things, it's, you know, it's that little bit more making the world smaller when it comes to this. So I think there's a couple more. This one just stood out. I don't know, just the lighting, I'm not sure, but I've not seen this bust before.
Yeah, I have actually. It's a big one.
Right.
Nice, really nice take though.
It is a nice take, isn't it? It's just, I don't know, it feels, I don't know, it's just a different style. Like it's hard to pin down, right? It doesn't look like this person's imitating anyone, if that makes sense. Just feel like they're painting it, which is really cool. And this, I think, would this count as historical or not?
I don't know. This is where the line's blurred, and you might, you know, it's not in a historical style. That's the thing. But I'd like to see this, you know, historical pieces painted however you want. Really, it's just a historical miniature.
The soft shading under the cheek is really nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right. And one more, was there? Two more.
Oh yeah.
Here we are. I have left the medal in this picture. I think this person's in the chat, aren't they? Possibly.
That's a standard level bronze.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which, you know, got a lot of questions about the different levels and stuff like that. Also, I'm very glad that they wrote standard on it, so people didn't say I want a gold, because that does happen without saying the level. But yeah, you can see it's a very high level, right? This is the standard, and it's a bronze. So when people say, "Oh, it's easy because they give away loads of medals," nope. This is fantastic.
I mean, we've mentioned a few times, haven't we? This mini is that whole. I still think that whole release is an absolute, just out the park, stunning set of miniatures.
Reminds me of Dave Colwell's painting this, actually, because it's very like brave to just light one area, and then, you know, you sort of have those big areas of dark, basically the lower half, to just bring all your attention to the top, right? That very subtle lighting. So I think that's very cool.
It's very effective. It's very moody as well, right?
Suits the figure.
Very much so. Very much so. And then one more, I think you said, wasn't it? Obviously.
Best for last.
So thankfully, this
Best
person had done 3 miniature dioramas, basically. So teeny tiny dioramas. And I saw their first one that they tagged, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's a cool idea. Well, maybe. Then I saw their second one. I was like, oh, yeah, that's also pretty cool. I'm not sure. And then obviously this one had a forg on it. So it got picked.
You need to see Fett's Fox diorama, mate. It's like one of these, but with a... remember Fett Milner? He did the ducks.
Yes.
So he's doing a fox at the moment on a little base like this, and I'll bring it to your attention because you're.
That's the point. My pick of it hasn't Joshua Lai just done another one recently? Should that have been my pick?
Pick it next time.
I'll pick it next time. Yeah, I think I've managed to make it through an hour and a half of the show. I think that's enough. Quit while we're ahead. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed going through just a handful of the thousands and thousands of tags we've got on the Paint Cultist hashtag now, which is awesome. It's for you, so go ahead and use it. If you've got any feedback from the show or you've got ideas for future episodes, then feel free to get in touch with us. We're on all the usual places. It's only a few of us, so do please reach out. We always love to have a chat with you and get back to you best as we can. If you'd like to support us at all, then easiest way is clicking like, subscribe, all the rest of it, and consider checking out the Patreon as well. Last month, super happy to have Baz on board now, Amphiaris. We're doing sculpting tutorials each month. It's very, very exciting. He's a lovely bloke, and he's taking to it really quickly. So yeah, lots and lots of positives. We will try and get the Culture of Paint show back on its sort of regular fortnightly Tuesday slot as soon as we can. We've got a couple of absolutely massive episodes coming up soon, and I mean the guests, not necessarily the length of time, but that depends how hard we fanboy. But yeah, so very, very excited about that. And again, that's only because of the support you guys have given us over the last couple of years. We're able to start reaching out to these people now and doing it. So thanks, Andy, ever so much for all that coverage of the event. Looks incredible. Very jealous. Congratulations.
Just trying to persuade you all to go, basically.
Don't think it's a hard sell, right?
My FOMO has hit me so hard.
Good. You suck for not going. What are you doing?
My bank account said no.
There we go. We just got to just pinch a load of models next time you're sling one on eBay. But yeah, great to see you getting gold in Masters, mate. I know it's been hard the last few years for you competitive painting guys not having that outlet. So yeah, really nice to see you taking that home. If you're watching this back, thanks for watching this back. But most importantly, all of you watching this live in the chat, joining in. It's been lovely to see some new people in there as well. Seems like a lot of you were at the event, which is awesome. Luke, go and check out. It was in Eindhoven. Go and check out the last pod. We speak specifically about the event with the organisers and everything. But yeah, chat's been wicked. So Andy, Matt, thanks for joining me. Chat, you're awesome. We'll see you next time.